Welcome to episode 262 of the official GonnaGeek.com show. This week we talk about Canadian phone scams, an update on space mining, and how Fallout 76 is going to last forever. Plus, SP does another edition of SP Space Symposium. This and more in this week's show.
Hi, I'm Stargate Pioneer from Better Podcasting, a proud member of the Gonna Geek Network. Just like the show you're listening to now, the opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
This is the official GonnaGeek.com show. Here we're a bunch of geeks talking about geeky things. Each week we run down the latest news and happenings in the world of geek. These are your hosts for the show, Steven.
But what if I'm in the mood for a T-Swift story?
Chris.
I've heard the X is going to give it to you.
And SP.
That's how we roll on Gonna Geek on Monday night. We get crazy!
Gonna Geek Productions presents the official GonnaGeek.com show.
Welcome to the first episode of the 262nd episode of the official GonnaGeek.com show. I am Stephen Jondrew, and joining me, of course, is the wonderful Chris Farrell.
I am a Jedi.
We also have joining us the Sith Stargate Pioneer.
I wasn't told this was a multi-part episode. My contract has to be rewritten.
You have a contract?
We're just going to go ahead and ADR you in. That's what we'll do.
I wish I had a contract.
Fine with me.
That sounds good. I love condenser microphones. That's what he's going to say the entire time. But yes,
I love the Blue Yeti. I am Stargate Pioneer, and I approve this message.
As long as I don't have to sit here and record, I'm fine with all that. Go ahead.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the news. Here we go. All right, in the news, I'm going to kick us off with something that is worth celebrating. I just got to say it. It's worth celebrating. This is something that is actually specific to Canada with the news article, but it has so much more of an impact than just Canada. Well, for those of you who aren't familiar, sometimes there are telephone scams. This is a new thing, I know, right? Not really.
I'm shocked.
One of the more popular ones that's in Canada, or geared towards Canadians, I should say, is that it's called the CRA phone scam. So up in Canada, we have the CRA. It's kind of like the American IRS. So think of it that way. And what they do is they call and they pitch the idea that you owe us money. And if you don't pay the CRA money, we will arrest you. And generally speaking, the English is not great with these, and it's like, we must issue a arrest for you or something like that. You know, it's really broken. I've gotten a couple of these calls over the years.
I've heard Canadian jails are actually quite luxurious, so this would not be a problem.
Pancakes with maple syrup every day. So this is the CRA scam, and it's been going on for a long time, and there have been people, of course, who have fallen victim to this, just like many other scams throughout the world. They paid it. Sometimes it's asking for gift cards, that sort of stuff. And often it is the elderly. Well, the problem is that whenever people have reported this issue, often they hit a dead end because the police agency, even if it is the RCMP, can't do anything because they get as far as finding out that these scammers are, of course, let me guess, out of country. I know, shocking, right? So how can you do much? Well, the CRA team, fraud team, has been working on something for a little while, and they have, in conjunction with the Indian police, have started raids on these call centers. In fact, over the past 2 weeks, Indian police have been bursting into suspected illegal contact centers, arresting everyone in sight, seizing all of the equipment immediately, and they're actually taking this an extra step, and they're essentially parading these arrests to the public because this has been apparently a problem in India for a long time, where these illegal call centers are happening and nobody's really afraid because of the fact that there hasn't been any repercussion to it. And because of this RCMP Indian Joint Task Force, they are making a whole bunch of arrests over in India. Now, this is obviously at this moment, a lot of information that I've read is to do with the CRA one, but you can only imagine a lot of these illegal scams. Well, illegal scams, I know, oxymoron, right? A lot of these things are absolutely probably connected. So like we've all heard the Microsoft thing, the Microsoft one where it's like you get a call, hey, it's John from Microsoft, we're detecting errors, can you just go to this link, open this up so I can check things out, right? Like I'm sure that a lot of these are probably connected somehow. So I thought this was really interesting to see, because finally we're getting a bit of crackdown outside of North America on some of these illegal call centers. And again, I just have no idea how many of these would be connected. I know I actually happened to get a call of this on Thursday, I think it was. I got another one of these calls, and this one was an automated one, but part of me is a little tempted. Like, should I call back and see if the number's now out of service? Because it was just before the raids happened.
It's probably a spoofed number, though. That's the problem I have here is I get the same recorded call, but from different numbers on my work phone 1 to 2 times a day, on my cell phone 1 to 3 times a week. And it's the exact same thing of either I need pain management or I've won a vacation. It's always the exact same call. And they try and make it sound like it's a real person, which is even more annoying.
I saw a news report last night on the fact that somebody can spoof the same number to multiple different calls at the same time. So these robocall centers could do hundreds of simultaneous calls, because not everybody's going to answer, and they will get the 1 or 2 that answers and they'll go right to them, and it's impossible to stop.
Well, the reason why I thought maybe it would be worth calling back is because they actually left, like as they were calling, they said they kind of treat it like it's being left on a voicemail, and it actually gave me a number to call back at, and it matched the one that was on my phone. So I was kind of tempted just to see, but in any case, I hope that this is a good sign, because, you know, obviously there's always going to be scammers and whatnot, and there's a lot of other countries, but I just thought this was a really interesting thing, and I wanted to bring it up here. And full credit where credit's due, my wife actually sent me this article, so there you go. You can credit her with the news article this week. All right, well, moving on to the next thing here. I heard that we're a little bit further into the Bruce Willis territory, something about a sale. Is that right, SP?
That's right. Armageddon, it's happening. Space mining, not so much. So there was an article last week, and I saw the title on it off of spacenews.com. And I was like, what? Asteroid mining company Planetary Resources is acquired? What? See, I thought this was a real thing. I was duped. Let's get into the specifics here. So Planetary Resource Inc., which was once a high-flying company backed by billionaires with aspirations to mine asteroids, only to later suffer funding problems, resource problems, has been acquired by blockchain company Consensus Inc. The firms both announced on October 31st in a asset purchase transaction whose specific terms and details were not disclosed. Now, Consensus describes itself as a blockchain venture production studio focused on building and scaling tools, disruptive startups, and enterprise software products powered by the decentralized technology, specifically Ethereum. Now, Planetary Resources' expertise in space would be folded into the Consensus, quote, bringing deep space capabilities into the Consensus ecosystem reflects our belief in the potential for Ethereum to help humanity craft new societal rule systems through automated trust and guaranteed execution, unquote. That was a quote from Consensus founder Joseph Lubin. All right. So I was duped. This was just one of those startup with venture capitalist fundings, and they were just trying to get to the point where somebody thought they were worth something, and then they were going to sell it. And obviously they ran out of funding. Nobody wanted to buy it, but this blockchain company, which isn't going to do anything with the actual space mining, and is basically taking the personnel and their technology and going to use it for disruptive startups. All right. Space mining's not a thing anymore, guys. Sorry.
Oh, I was under the impression that this article meant that we were closer to Bruce Willis. What's going on?
Well, you can be as close to Bruce Willis as you want. You just have to fly to wherever he is and knock on his door.
I'm sad now.
I don't know about you, Stephen, but I don't want to miss a thing.
I don't want to miss a thing. I definitely don't want to miss a thing, especially another episode of the official GetAGeek.com show.
No, I hate that song. I hate it.
Oh, okay. So what you're telling us, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you are
You're wrong.
What you're okay. We'll let the listeners decide.
Don't set
this.
him up that way.
Listeners, correct me if I'm wrong. What this is, because this article is a follow-up to something you previously spoke about, SP. So what?
Prove it. What episode did I talk about it on?
I'll figure it out. But what we're saying is that you lied to the listeners. I believe that's what it was. You got us all excited about it. You lied to us. You misled the listeners.
No. I was just reporting on an article which was actually produced by a reputable news company. So I didn't lie. I was just reporting on the news.
Episode 200. I think it was episode 227. No, that seems too long ago.
Now you're just throwing numbers out.
It was one of the episodes between 1 and 261. It was one of those.
Sure it wasn't 0? Sure it wasn't a half point somewhere along the way?
It's doubtful. It's very doubtful. Okay, so that I have a few more minutes to Google and find out why or what episode it was that Stargate Pioneer lied to everybody, let's go ahead and turn it over to Chris Farrell to give his news here. Go ahead, Chris. Give me some time to figure out why SP's a liar.
So, Stephen, here's your time to do some quick Google foo work. I talked to you guys a little bit about the Fallout 76 beta. It was either last week or the week before. It's all blurring together because I've been playing way too much of it. But for those that aren't familiar, Fallout 76 is an online multiplayer game. And because of that, it requires an internet connection so that you can join a server and interact with a lot of people, which has folks kind of scratching their head and going, well, what happens if Bethesda decides to shut off the servers? Well, Bethesda's not really talking about that because A, that's a problem, but B, because they don't really have plans to shut the servers down. How long is Fallout 76 going to be up? Forever, Pete Hines from Bethesda told GameSpot, doubling down on what he said before. I don't know how to give an answer other than that it's not like anybody makes a game and goes, well, this is going to make it 10 years if we're lucky. Nobody thinks that way. How long has WoW been up now? Is that game playing to sunset in a year? I seriously doubt it. So this is kind of the shift we've seen in gaming, is a lot more of these connected type games where you have to be online, you have to connect to a server of some kind to play. And it's kind of problematic for historical preservationists, basically. You can take old video games that are out there now, make a ROM of it, and you can make it exist forever in a state where someone can play it. You start getting to games that are MMOs that require connections to a third-party server, like, say, City of Heroes, which has been canceled, Star Trek Online, which is still up, Star Wars Galaxies, which is canceled. These games aren't playable anymore once the servers go down. So it's legitimate concern for people to have, but looking at all the hype and the buzz that's come up around Fallout 76, I think you're probably good for longer than most people are going to play the game for.
This is good to hear. And I got to say that hearing you talk about this, it's really exciting to me because you've got a heck of a lot more confidence in the longevity of this than you did Movie Pass. And I will say that,
Hold on.
Yeah.
To be fair, Movie Pass, I just said ride the wave until it dies. I never made any promises.
You've been holding on to that grudge way too long, Chris. You had your hopes and dreams assigned to Movie Pass, and it has physically and mentally affected you when they went out of business.
No, they're still in business, still doing their shady tactics.
So
of
you can go to movies and you can see movies, so they're still in business to be able to do that?
See any movie like why are we arguing about this? I was proven right about it. It doesn't matter. I enjoyed it until the wave went out.
It's true. And, one of my favorite stories was when MoviePass decided to sort of reactivate some of the accounts and whatnot. That was one of my favorite ones. In fact, that was back in episode 256, or 257, I should say, of the GonnaGeek.com show. And also in episode 257 was SP talking about space mining. So there you go.
So there's some good Google food. Going back to Fallout 76, though, Bethesda really does not want you worrying about the servers going away one day. Pete Hines continued in the interview and said, we're going to keep going as long as people keep playing and show no signs of slowing down. Once we get to private servers or whatever happens in the years following, I don't know. Maybe there's a point where it does matter, but this is a massive franchise and a massive undertaking, and our commitment to it is never ending, and that continues on an ongoing basis. So Bethesda is saying all of the right things about the future fate of Fallout 76. Yes, it's a problem with modern games like I touched on. You can't really preserve it if the servers don't exist anymore. It's a problem. You can't go back and play games you love, but right now, it looks like we're going to get a fair number of years out of Fallout 76.
All right. Well, again, I'm very happy to hear you more excited about this than MoviePass because I just, I
want to show you a finger right now.
Okay, so MoviePass is on my mind for two reasons. Number one, because I happened to see it was in episode 257 when I was looking up the space mining information. Second thing is I just saw somebody shake their fist like an old man on the lawn about MoviePass this past weekend, and they're so mad. They're like, look, this is outrageous, and they were so angry, and it's like, where have you been for the last 6 months?
Yeah, no joke. This has been a problem. I don't know how some people didn't see the problems coming, especially when the plans all changed, and the internet was literally, MoviePass is the worst, I hate you, all over Twitter and Reddit and Facebook and all of that stuff. If you're just now figuring out that MoviePass is screwed up, you must not have been using the MoviePass.
All right. Well, moving on to our extra section here. This one is one that I'll kick us off with. And what it is those of you who are not familiar, there is a version of Android called Android One. Android One is basically the mostly stock version of Android. It's the standard that Google has made called Android One, where it's just supposed to be stripped down, and it's what they encourage manufacturers to do and use and brand their phones as a blah 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 one when it was running this Android One, because they want to have this sort of stock version of Android out there. So, and of course you get the benefits of the quick updates to it and whatnot. Motorola Android One phone is going to be coming out for $399. They announced that last week, and it actually doesn't look too bad. It looks kind of, from a visual perspective, similar to the iPhone 10. It does have a notch. It's a 5.9-inch display. And it does, of course, have the Motorola logo on the bottom, so a little bit more room at the bottom. It's going to have a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, 13 megapixel camera, an 8 megapixel selfie cam, and 4 gigs of RAM. But it also has micro SD storage. So it's pretty interesting to see that there's a reasonably priced Android One phone coming out by Motorola. And that's why I wanted to mention it, because I think that this is an example, and I know that Motorola's had less expensive phones a lot before, but this is, I think we're going to see a pickup in these sort of level of phones with the way that the top tier phones are going so extreme pricing. I think you're going to find that sort of 1 to 2 year technology line, the new phones being released with that sort of technology, I think it's going to make a bit of a pickup, a resurgence, I should say, for consumers that don't want to pay that high price tag. I don't know. That's my theory, and that's why I wanted to mention it.
I think you're going to see not so much of a difference in the 1 to 2 year old phones as you would have a couple of years ago. But you're still going to see degraded quality, meaning you're going to get less storage available. You're going to definitely get less speed available. The screen's just not going to be there. So, yes, I hope that it progresses to the point where we all don't have to pay like $1,500 or more dollars for a phone. And take a look at cars, for instance. I mean, Honda and Toyota in the United States, they used to be, from the 90s on, they used to be very good cars that were quality, reliable, and everybody flocked to them. Well, over the years, they just ballooned in price. And then all of a sudden people are like, hey, what's with this Hyundai? Hey, Kia, they seem to be decent cars. They might not have all the bells and whistles, but I can get that same car for a third of the price. And it's still going to get me from point A to point B. I think that's what cell phones are going to become. I don't know if we're there yet, but this is an interesting one I know that Apple has tried to do their version of the cheap phone and just really hasn't worked out here in the United States. I really haven't seen too many of them here in the United States. And I'm guessing Canada is the same way. In other countries, it might be a completely different story, like China, for instance. But in the United States, those discount phones, I don't know what to call them, less capable phones, they just haven't taken to the masses like they were allegedly supposed to.
All right. What else do we have in the extra here, SP?
Well, I have a few quick hits on stories I've covered before on space. First of all, SpaceX's Starman and the Tesla Roadster are now officially beyond Mars. Now, the red electric car and its spacesuit-clad mannequin driver, which launched on its maiden mission of SpaceX's huge Falcon Heavy rocket in February 2018, have now made it beyond the orbit of Mars, the company representatives said Friday night, November 2nd. Now, Starman and his ride, and don't forget the car, used to belong to Musk. I think it still does belong to Musk, but it's in space now, so he can't go and get it and drive it. They won't stay beyond Mars forever. The pair will loop back on their heliocentric orbit, eventually coming about as close to the sun as Earth does. And according to the authors of an orbit modeling study back in February, the car will slam into either Venus or Earth, likely within the next few tens of millions of years.
Okay, so does that mean that we get to see Starman again? Is that what's going to happen now?
It's possible, but unlikely.
Are you sure about that? Because you didn't factor in the point that soon we're going to have commercial space mining. Oh, wait, we're not. Never mind.
Okay, you brought it up in episode 257. I was not referring to planetary resources. The article I was talking about was a college degree of the Colorado School of Mines. So I wasn't talking about planetary resources, but I was talking about space mining.
Are you sure about that?
I am positive.
Oh, well then. You know what? We'll just go ahead and agree to disagree because I don't like to be proven wrong.
Okay. Well, the article title that I was talking about was Learning How to Fuel an Interplanetary Gas Station. And it was the Colorado School of Mines. Remember Professor Angel Abdu Madrid? Yeah.
Nope, because you probably told me about the news story and thus I didn't pay attention.
That does not surprise me.
You had another news story here related to space, didn't you?
I did. I actually have a couple more. On one of the space probes that we've talked about before is NASA's Dawn, and it is now shut down. So it's sunset for NASA's Dawn. That was the article title on space.com. But Asteroid Belt Probe's legacy lives on. So NASA's Dawn was a $467 million spacecraft mission, and it studied two large objects in the asteroid belt, but has now officially run out of fuel and thus ending its mission to shed light on the solar system's earliest days. Now, Dawn launched in September 2007 with its sight set on the protoplanet Vesta and the dwarf planet Ceres. Despite the millions of objects in the asteroid belt, Dawn's targets contain a whopping 45% of the asteroid belt's mass. So these were two targets of opportunity that needed to be studied. Dawn is currently orbiting around Ceres, and mission team members said there's a greater than 99% probability that the probe won't spiral down onto Ceres' frigid, battered surface for at least 5 more decades. So if we can get there within 50 years, we can snatch it up and bring it home.
Yeah, that seems doable, doesn't it?
I think so. I think we should send Chris there.
Sure, why not? My bandwidth can't get any worse.
Okay, so somebody here shoved into the notes a note about YouTube. Something going on with YouTube. Who put that there? About coming to the Switch? Oh, it was me! It was me! Because, I like to draw the attention to me. I don't know if you saw this, Chris Farrell, and I wanted to put it in here because you are the Switch guru, I heard. That apparently there's going to be a YouTube app support, or I guess a YouTube app on Switch coming this week. Have you heard anything about this?
I saw some rumors about it on Twitter. I'm not really going to watch YouTube on my Switch. I got multiple other devices. It's far more convenient to watch on.
But you could if you wanted to.
Yeah, well, suppose I can watch Hulu on there at some point in time too, but that still hasn't showed up.
I think this is actually a good thing. And the reason I wanted to mention it in here, not only that was so that I could give you all sorts of things to be excited about, Chris Farrell, but it was also because I think that it's just another example of possibly, just solidifying reasons why the Switch is a worthwhile device to invest in, right? Like it's great for people who are wanting to take gaming on the road and do other things like that. And so, like, if someone's looking and they're like, I could afford an iPad and then mostly just play games on that, and I wouldn't do much, or maybe I could get a Switch. This might make them want to get a Switch because now if they are traveling, if it's got YouTube on it, they've got that support right there, as opposed to before where it was like, but see, at least with the iPad, I can use YouTube and stuff. So like the more apps that we get on the Switch or availability of different things on Switch, I think it's a good thing. And I'm a fan of the Switch, even though I don't have one. I like what they've done.
So when are you getting one?
When are you going to send me one?
Yeah, not paying that.
Having apps on a gaming console system, handheld or not, works so well for the Wii.
A Switch is different than the Wii.
How so?
It's a completely different experience because you're actually bringing it with you.
Not the Wii 2. It had the handheld component.
But the Wii 2 sucked. The Wii 2 it was poor game support.
And your point?
And it was a different design. Well, the Wii, okay, what was it called? That wasn't the Wii 2. What was the name of it, Chris?
The Wii U?
Wii U. The Wii U you couldn't just take with you like that, could you?
No. You had to be within range of the base station to wirelessly connect to it.
And that's the difference right there, is the portability of the Switch, is you're actually bringing the console with you without having to lug around your CRT TV, Stargate Pioneer, like you do.
I don't lug it around anymore. I mean, it was in the conversion van for a while. I don't have the van anymore.
I thought you brought that along with that tape deck that you've got in front of you.
The VCR tape deck, it was a combination TV VCR in the conversion van.
I was talking about the cassette deck as well.
I didn't need the dual deck because it had one of those decks that you just put the tape in and it would, automatically went in and had the CD right over it. It was a Ford Ecoline E150 and it was a conversion van.
All right, well, you had two more extra news points here that you wanted to rapid fire through, right, SB?
I did. First of all, I need to say RIP to another spacecraft. Kepler, NASA's Revolutionary Planet Hunting Telescope, did indeed run out of fuel this past week. Now, NASA's Kepler Space Telescope, which discovered about 70% of the 3,800 planets out there, ran out of fuel on October 30th. So Kepler can no longer reorient itself to study cosmic objects or beam its data back home to Earth. So the legendary instrument's in-space work is done after nearly a decade. Kepler's work will live on, however, in other missions, such as NASA's new spacecraft called the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, or TESS, which is hunting for alien worlds circling stars that lie relatively close to the sun, using the same transit method that Kepler used, and also NASA's $8.9 billion James Webb Space Telescope, which is scheduled to launch in 2021. I'll believe it when I see it, and will scan the atmospheres of nearby alien worlds, looking for methane, oxygen, and other gases that may be signs of life.
Why do you got to depress us like this?
Well, I mean, Kepler is done, but we have TESS up there right now, basically doing Kepler's mission, and James Webb Space Telescope will get up there in a couple of years, and it will be just phenomenal. James Webb is going to be better than TESS, Kepler, Hubble, all combined into one. I can't wait for that telescope to get up there, if it works.
Yeah, but I love the Hubble.
I know you do.
Hubble's amazing.
You can take the Hubble home if you want to. Matter of fact, it's probably going to deorbit right over your house.
Sweet. Can we get souvenirs?
It works so well in The Flash this year.
Oh, don't get me started on The Flash. The Flash, the greatest television show in all of everything, ever.
You misspelled Legends of Tomorrow.
I do have one last story to talk about, and it's one we've been following closely for about a month here. Now, the Russians have identified the cause of the Soyuz launch abort, and they released dramatic rocket video. Guys, I know we talked about this offline before the podcast tonight. Let me go through it for the listeners, though. Russia's space agency Roscosmos announced on Thursday, November 1st in a press conference that a deformed sensor caused the harrowing Soyuz rocket launch abort that forced its American and Russian crew to perform an emergency landing back in October. Now, the abnormal separation of one of the rocket's 4 strap-on boosters, which hit the core booster, was caused by a nozzle cover on the oxidizer tank failing to open correctly. Now, according to the press statement, that impact occurred because the separation contact sensor was deformed during the assembly of the rocket at its Baikonur Cosmodrome launch site in Kazakhstan. Now, Roscosmos also released the dramatic video footage from the onboard camera this morning, meaning back in November 1st, showing a calm ascent into space suddenly interrupted by a booster separation and tumbling motion. Now, Russian officials said during the press conference that they've created measures to avoid the issue ever happening again, and that resuming Soyuz launches was a priority. The article went on to say that they are on target for the December 20th launch of a crew on board Soyuz back to the International Space Station. However, I'm just going to pause a second. Did you guys watch that dramatic video?
I did, and I gotta say, music, questionable choice, but don't really need it. But it was, yeah, I like the different angles that they had, and it's reassuring in a weird way to see it go wrong and yet go right. So, it's a really reassuring video to me.
So you could tell by the timestamps of what was happening, because it was just by happenstance that the video was on the crew members as this whole thing was happening, right, during the separation of the first and second stages. But you got to see everything side by side lined up and synced up video-wise. So you saw the buffeting was because initially that they were separating from the solid rocket boosters, but then all heck broke loose, and you saw them really buffeting pretty hard. And you saw both of those on the screen at the same time. Several dramatic angles, new video that I had not seen yet, and it was awesome. As about the music, since this was from space.com's website, I don't know if it was space.com or Space News that put the music in the background, or if it was Roscosmos. I'm just going to blame Roscosmos because, hey, it's their rocket. They can put whatever music they want there.
See, I blame you, and I blame you for this whole problem, and I said it before that you broke it. So if you want to watch this video, we have set up a short link. It's www.geeks.link/spbrokeit. Go ahead and watch that. Geeks.link/spbrokeit.
I was nowhere near Kazakhstan when when the rocket was being assembled. How can you possibly blame me?
Magic.
Nobody believes that you weren't there. Nobody. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to SP's Space Symposium.
You probably know SP from various shows on the Gonna Geek Network, but did you know that outside of podcasting, he's actually the director of the secret government space organization called SNASA? You're about to hear him declassify some Area 51 level secrets in the segment he calls SP's Space Symposium.
This is a segment that I've enjoyed to do for quite some time. It's SP's Space Symposium. We were first talking about space telescopes, which we just talked about a couple of them in the news segments before. And then we went on to space probes. We're in the middle of that right now. As a matter of fact, the number 9th space probe. And what I've been doing is I've been going back into history, and we've been going from the first space probe, which was Sputnik back in 1957. And we're not taking each of them, but we're taking the more important ones along the way.
Question for you.
Yes.
When are you going to get to Roswell?
Roswell's not a space probe.
I thought
We could go into space conspiracies.
I swear that all space abductions involve probing.
Oh boy.
We can get into the conspiracy theories once we've gotten through everything else, but we've got a long way to go. I mean, the first Space Symposium was way back on Gonna Geek number 136. That was almost 3 years ago. So it's going to take a while to get up to the point where I can swap over to space conspiracies, at which time most of them will be debunked anyway.
Remember, though, we're turning each episode into multi-part now. So as we mentioned at the top of the show.
It's going to be even longer. All right. So the 9th space probe we're talking about is Pioneer 5. So the last 3 were Russian. They were Luna 1, Luna 2, and Luna 3. This is Pioneer 5. And it is the first dedicated interplanetary probe. For those of you that remember, Luna 1 was kind of a failure and it kind of missed the moon and went off into interplanetary space. So it wasn't really meant to go off in there. Pioneer 5 was. And in matter of fact, Pioneer 5 was planned for a Venus flyby mission. However, delays in the program caused them to miss the launch window, and Pioneer 5 investigated interplanetary space magnetic fields instead. So it was launched on a direct solar orbit trajectory, and Pioneer 5 successfully reached heliocentric orbit. Now, we talked about heliocentric orbit before. What heliocentric orbit is basically an orbit that goes around the sun. So it's not around the Earth, it's not around the moon, it's not around Mars, it's an orbit around the sun. And so Pioneer 5 was set off in that direction. And it was sent in between the space of Earth and Venus to demonstrate deep space technologies and to provide the first map of the interplanetary magnetic fields. It was launched on March 11th, 1960. This is less than 3 years after the Russians started to go into space. And of course, the Americans did their own probes like Explorer and Vanguard. Well, they also did the Pioneer systems. And we talked about Pioneer 3 before, but this one was meant to go to Venus. And it was really the first interplanetary probes out there. So within 3 years, we've gone into space, and now all of a sudden we're heading towards other planets. That's phenomenal. Like 2.5 years. It's just incredible. So it was launched via a Thor Able rocket, which weren't the most stable platforms to begin with, but it was successful in this point. And it had a mass of 43 kilograms, which is 95 pounds, which is just a little bit more mass than the bumpers and trailer hitch on a 2018 GMC Sierra 4x4.
I knew it. I should have known better.
I actually looked up the weight of two bumpers and a trailer hitch, by the way.
Of course you did.
Each bumper is about 40 pounds a piece, and if you put a trailer hitch on, it's right there. Yeah.
Now, you should just start a podcast, Stargate Pioneer. It's just like every little bit about the 2018 GMC Sierra 4x4. And break it all down.
By the time I get it broken all down, it'll be like the 2020 or 2021 GMC Sierra 4x4. And Tesla will have electric trucks by then, so who cares, right? So how big was this thing? It was about 2.16 feet tall and about 4.4 feet wide. So it was just this big cylinder and had these god-awful huge solar panels outside of them. And of course, the mission was to characterize the interplanetary space between Earth and Venus. The payload, it had several instruments, a magnetometer, a ionization chamber, a Geiger counter, a micrometeoroid spectrometer, a photoelectric cell aspect indicator, which was basically meant to know which way the probe was pointing, and a proportional counter telescope. So it did have quite the range of scientific instruments on board, and it was successful in confirming the existence of previously conjectured interplanetary magnetic fields. I don't know if you guys knew this or not. Magnetic fields are not just around the planets. Apparently, the solar system has them as well because the sun emits them. It's not just solar radiation or solar wind. The sun has a magnetic field around that, and this probe discovered it. So, yay, America! We're back in the game, right?
Huzzah!
So the operational length was about 107 days. The end of life was June 26th, 1960. That was the last recorded transmission back from the probe. And yeah, that's about it, guys. The next time we'll talk about Mariner 2, which will be the first successful Venus flyby.
So what you're saying is that this probe is as American as a 2018 GMC Sierra 4x4. Is that correct?
That's made in Canada or America or Mexico.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just really trying to get you that sponsorship. I'm just trying to get it for you, SP.
Oh, I'm just trying to, the whole NAFTA thing. I don't know where they're made. We have to pander to whatever country they're made in.
It's probably Canada, because Canada is amazing.
Well, I do know that they have the, what is it called? The Northlands version or the High Sierra version? I don't know. I know some of them are made up there.
That's true. Okay, so explain to me the whole magnetometer. Is that how you say it? Magnetometer.
However you want to say it, I don't care. You Canadians, process and everything else. I don't know what your speech is supposed to be. And God save the Queen, right? So a rotating search coil magnetometer to measure the magnetic fields in the distant field of the Earth near the geomagnetic boundary and in interplanetary space. Now, this thing was capable of measuring fields from 1 microgauss to 12 microgauses. And it consisted of a single search coil that was mounted on the spacecraft in such a way that it measured the magnetic field perpendicular to the spin axis of the spacecraft. Thus, it was spin stabilized. And it could output its measurements in both an analog and a digital format. So they had early computers back then in 1960.
Okay, so when they send this up, you said obviously big discovery, right? Was that their intention of this? Like, is that what their target was?
I talked about before how the original target was Venus, but they missed the launch window and they just couldn't wait for the next one because with the planets lined up and everything, I think it was going to be like almost 3 years, which scratched my head on that one. But so they decided to just launch it in the general vicinity and to study the transit, kind of like what we do with Mars, right? So we're measuring the radiation between here and Mars so that we can prepare humans, medically at least, to get from here to there. It was the same thing with the probe because we didn't know what was there. We had to find out. I mean, there could have been a whole fleet of GMC Sierra 4x4s just blocking the way, right?
Yes, you're right. There probably could have been. And probably, with time travel and all that, there were 2018 GMC Sierra 4x4s.
In reality, you're talking about micrometeoroids, and you just didn't know what the effect was going to be on the probes. And it's still a concern today. I mean, if you get hit with one of those at high velocity, your spacecraft is done for.
As you've gone through these, and I feel actually like a little guilty, if I'm honest, about not doing the show notes better and not prepping to put stuff on screen a little bit better. But SP, when he does his article, he copies and he puts a lot of work into this. And what we see in the background a lot of times is pictures, and he's got pictures there. And one of the things that's amazing to me is how different some of these probes look. Every probe looks quite different than the previous one you mentioned. And it's amazing to me because they're all kind of the same era, and yet they look vastly different than each other.
So this is a big ball. It had black and white color on it, but it's just a big ball, and it has articulated solar panels on it to try to get battery power to it. Because remember, batteries weren't lasting all that great, and solar power wasn't all that great back in 1960. So they're trying to figure this as it goes along. And it's interesting that I believe in this particular case, they integrated the antennas into the solar panel holders. So you had less protrusions coming out, and thus less things to run into each other. Say this thing starts spinning pretty hard and they're able to recover it at some point in time. But if it spins too hard, you can have some of the stuff clanging against each other and the spacecraft will break. So it's wise to try to minimize the amount of protrusions externally to your spacecraft body.
Kind of like the folding side steps on the 2018 GMC Sierra 4x4.
Oh, those automatic ones, they're so sweet, aren't they?
Does it come with puddle lights too?
All right. Well, thanks again for doing this, SP. I do greatly appreciate that. All right. Well, that's going to take us towards the end of the show. Before we wrap up, we will remind you that we are part of the Gonna Geek Network. The Gonna Geek Network has a bunch of amazing geeky content. If you've not checked out the Gonna Geek Network, we encourage you to head on over to GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Check it out, because there's a lot of awesome, amazing geeky shows on there, and one of which is one of my favorite shows to listen to, which is all of them. I like to listen to all of them, but this one here is called All Things Good and Nerdy. All Things Good and Nerdy has a crew over there that likes to get together on Sundays. And if you're just looking to kick back on Sundays, listen to some geeky things or nerdy stuff, if you will, you should check that out, because they like to have a lot of fun. And I'll warn you, it's not always family-friendly fun, but there's a lot of fun to be had there. And I heard a rumor, Chris Farrell, that a couple of the people, some might call them arch nemesises, did get together this past week. Is that true? Is that true? They physically got together.
Physically, yes. If you guys haven't been paying attention in that show, Willie Nelson has a new job that has him driving.
Who?
Willie D. Nelson. Excuse me, not that Willie Nelson.
No, I know of New Naki. I'm not sure who this Willie D. Nelson is.
So New Naki, aka Willie D. Nelson, has a job where he's driving all around in trucks. He found himself in the Chicagoland area this weekend and dropped in on Naki as Keith, aka Clone Freak 1, was finishing up the Extra Life Marathon. So he helped himself to getting some bacon pancakes with Naki, Keith, and the draftsman, who you might know from the ATG and chat room. They were all there having maple bacon pancakes. I'm so jealous.
I gotta say, I would have lost that bet. I was pretty confident that if Willie was ever in the same place as Naki, that Willie was never going to be seen again.
Well, it's happened before.
You don't have any video to prove it, though.
Yeah, we have video from C2E2.
No, that was before. That whole thing happened before they hated each other. Now, I was pretty sure that Naki was just going to, make him disappear.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen him since Sunday. I've seen Facebook posts, but that doesn't mean he's still alive.
Naki's taking his phone and taking pictures and posting them. That's great.
It could be she probably took his Switch also.
So she can watch YouTube.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, if you want to check this out, it's called All Things Good and Nerdy. Again, it's available on GonnaGeekNetwork.com or live on Sundays at 8 o'clock a.m. Pacific time, maybe 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern. 11 p.m. Eastern, right?
A.m.
Oh, okay. AM. 11 a.m. Eastern.
I'm in bed by 11 p.m. Eastern.
That says the guy that doesn't make any mistakes.
I don't know.
It was a test. He was testing me. It wasn't a mistake.
It's true. It was definitely a mistake. I am a failure.
He's got your back, Steven. He's got your back.
I tried to stick up for you, but it didn't work. I'm sorry, Steven.
It's okay. I'm just so used to SP beating me down on Better Podcasting. He is the better half of that show, apparently.
Or so it's been said by Hall of Famer podcasters.
But before we do close up, would Chris or Stargate Pioneer like to take this moment to plug or promote anything? Let's start off with Stargate Pioneer.
If you happen to be interested in producing your own podcast, I have started a YouTube channel, SP's Edit Walkthroughs, basically. We can put the link in the chat room later or in the show notes. And it's just me editing Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., basically, via Magic's Movie Studio, 15.0 Platinum, and Audacity. So if you are interested in how a video editor works or an audio editor works, you can go ahead and get that. There's like 5 videos up there right now, and it's just me talking through editing. So it's not an instructional or anything, but it's just a walkthrough. And I've been streaming on Twitch too.
That's awesome. I'm glad you did this. This was something that I sent you a video a very long time ago when you first got Magic's Movie Studio, and sent it to you of my editing session. And I will admit that I had full ambitions of continuing on with that, but it never worked out for me. It was just like, it was going to be more work for something like that. So I'm glad somebody did this idea, because it's a very good idea. And I know a lot of people are starting to stream sessions like that and whatnot, and it's helpful, I think, for people who are getting into editing or are trying to learn different aspects of different software. If you can see somebody using it, yes, you might not fully understand exactly what it is they're doing because it's specific to their workflow, but it can be very helpful. And yeah, I'm glad to see. Or maybe I'll just go ahead and give you some stiff competition sometime and start my own.
You're more than welcome to. I mean, it does take a little bit longer because I do stop and explain stuff as I'm doing it, but it's not planned. It's just, what am I doing to fix this right here? So if I don't have to explain it, then my edits go faster and I get to go watch TV or something. So go ahead.
No, I'm not talking about an editing video. I'm going to start an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan podcast.
Oh, please do.
Chris Farrell, do you have anything that you want to plug or promote?
So I'm an old man now, but the kids tell me that these Discord channels and servers are all the real deal nowadays. So we started one up, gonnageek.com/Discord. If you want to come and chat with some other Gonna Geekers or just some like-minded folks who like talking about geeky things, be it comics, TVs, video games, whatnot, come and join us over on the official Gonna Geek Discord. That's gonnageek.com/Discord. And yes, you can call me old when you show up because I still don't understand everything about it.
What a Discord? I'm not sure. I don't get it. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure how to explain this to you other than say, Google that crap.
gonnageek.com/Discord. Make sure you go, and there's a lot of great conversations that I'm actually shocked at the embracement that the community has had for it. So there is a lot of good conversations that are going on in there.
Joking aside, that's actually what I wanted to mention is I actually wanted to specifically thank everybody who is on the Gonna Geek Discord. We're off to a great start. I really appreciate everybody who has been a part of it. And if you have not checked it out and you're familiar with Discord, please check it out. If you're not familiar with Discord, I encourage you to also take a look if you're interested in it. And if you have questions, just let us know. Hit us up on Twitter or email us if you want. You can email here, show@gonnageek.com. Find one of us three. We'll hopefully try to guide you through there because it's a really fun community so far. So I'm glad that you said that, Chris. And if anybody has any suggestions for that, please do let me know. But there you go. That's the end of episode 262 of the official gonnageek.com show. I'm Stephen John Drew saying The Flash. It's the best show ever. Only because I'm wearing the shirt right now. I actually have problems with it.
And I'm SP saying, I love Nora on The Flash.
And I'm Chris Farrell saying, farewell, Rick Grimes. We'll see you in the movies?
Gimple, you suck. I'm just going to go ahead and say it now. Bye.
Poke, poke, poke.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the official gonnageek.com show. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or a thumbs up on YouTube. You can always join us for our live recording sessions, which stream Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern at www.geeks.live. And remember, you can find our full back catalog at gonnageek.com/show. If you're itching for more geeky content, check out other shows on gonnageeknetwork.com. Voice work was by Emily Prokop of the Story Behind podcast. That's it for this episode. We hope to see you back again next week.